gray zone, temporary disconnect. I shoot my mouth off, I can't find my pistol yet. You can call this music disrespect, cause it'll slap you in your face at your local discotheque. Mr. Green with your missiles and rockets. My paycheck burns a hole in your pocket. You told the judge, put my name on the docket. Meeting in the break room, here's what we plotted. Let's fight, let's smash, let's win. We gon' fight, we gon' smash, let us in. Let's fight, let's smash, let's win. Just like getting up in the club with a fake ID. If it don't work, we gon' do it again. Your Honor.
Hey, it's Soleil, and this is episode 529 of the Orange Pill Investor. And today I want to talk about a concept called total war. And there's a formula that I saw someone come up with, which I thought was pretty cool. And it was the formula for who wins a war. And it was basically whoever ends up with the most energy. And if you got E equals MC squared, the mass is like the number of people. So you would think, okay, an army with 100,000 should always beat an army with 50,000. But the other part of the equation is the velocity squared. And you could equate velocity as just like how dedicated to the cause are they. If you hire mercenaries, they're not going to have a lot of velocity. They're not intrinsically motivated. So it's usually the zealots or the maybe even like religious fanatics or whatever that end up winning. And so we've got well, anyway, the point is whoever can come up with the most kinetic energy wins in a kinetic war. But in the Knots versus Core debate, we're fighting a digital war, which is good because there's no bloodshed, so that's nice. But the idea of total war still applies. And let's see if I can find it. Matthew Cratter. He's been covering, and I've been covering a little bit since he brought it to my attention, this idea of the cat, which is a proposal to actually confiscate unspent transactions of a certain size and indexed to whether they're ordinals or not. There's a little bit more to it than that. But it's basically would just be like rug pulling out from the spammers. It would take about a third of the spam off the chain. And people are shitting themselves because even though this is a soft fork, this is like beyond anything that the Knots filters were talking about. And I'm kind of all for it to a certain extent. I think even if nothing else, it holds the proper risks over the heads of spammers, because right now they get to enjoy outsourcing the data storage of their shitty images and to the node runners. The node runners get no benefit whatsoever. So this is completely non-consensual. It's not mutually beneficial. And, the miners get a little bit extra money, but then of course the spammers are basically just parasitizing off of the network. And so this kind of makes me happy. I don't know if this gets through. However, some people are calling this extreme. And I guess I'm going to put myself out there even like way more heretical even than these people. And I even argued with Grok about it for a good bit. And usually you can get these AIs to concede your point eventually. And Grok really wasn't budging. And like I'd be willing to hard fork it. I really don't give a fuck at this point. And I know like, oh, no way. No one should be talking about a hard fork. The price will get fucked, but that's all temporary. I mean, and maybe I just have a weird perspective on this, but when I was my early Bitcoin adventure, it was kind of it was kind of exciting when the block size wars happened and kind of BCH went off on its own way. It was kind of like, okay, cool. I get free coins. I had whatever. I had half a Bitcoin yesterday. Now I've got 2 sets of 0.5 Bitcoins, one on each chain. Now one went the way of the dodo bird and they became worthless ish. But yeah, I know it should be avoided at all costs. But the idea of total war means that you are willing to do whatever it takes to win. And clearly the spammers are, really don't deserve any, what is it when you, oh my God, I should know. I had one of the cards. Yeah, Geneva Conventions cards. It's not like, okay, they're participating in the Geneva Convention and they're just like, oh, I'll play fair. Like, no, they're parasites. So they really just don't get any consideration from me. And so if something really nasty got on the chain because they blew open the op return filters, it really wouldn't bother me a bit to hard fork it. But I know that opinion is just way out there. But yeah, I'd be totally fine with hard forking that shit right off the chain. And people will bitch and moan. It's like, oh, it's supposed to be immutable. Yeah. If someone reversed an actual monetary transaction, then I think that would violate immutability. But if you attach your bullshit to a monetary transaction, you're basically trying to hijack it. You're holding that transaction hostage, and that's not money. So clearly spam is not money, and forking non-money off of the chain, I don't really, it just doesn't bother me. I know it's supposed to, but the Allies in World War II, they firebombed civilians in Germany and Japan and frickin' atomized people a couple of times, even after the war was basically over. And so the idea of total war is that you can't handicap yourself with any particular attack vector. And regardless of whether the cat goes through or even worst case scenario, some kind of hard fork like what I'm talking about, just the fact that some of us are willing to entertain this fact, it's kind of like it's holding that threat over the heads of spammers that, look, there's people out here that really just do not give a fuck and will do everything that they can possibly do to rug your ass. Guys like Peter Todd, their version of the protocol is they just accept everything. There's no filter whatsoever. In Core, so Peter Todd's is Libre, and I forget the exact details, but he's basically just like, what is it? The three monkeys: hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. He just does not give a fuck. Those nodes will relay anything and everything. They do not give a shit. And so it's probably, you could even make an argument that that type of node is important to make a principled stand on. He just doesn't give a fuck in the other direction, the complete opposite direction of what I'm talking about. And that's fine. But currently there's like almost no voices that are in direct opposition to that stance. And I know it's a little wild and out there, but I'll be more than happy to be the one to take that other stance. Not that I'm on his level at a an OG level or whatever. But as far as philosophically, I don't mind being like 100% on the opposite end of the spectrum from that position when the result of his position is spam and bloat and shitcoinery and non-monetary money. So anyway, lucky for us, total war is bloodless coups at this point. No need for firebombing. We can do it all digitally. unfortunately, all war leads to destruction and anxiety and chaos in the short term. And so, if this isn't resolved amicably with BIP 110 or the cat, then maybe it goes. The only thing we have left is total war, and I'm here for it. So I got my fingers crossed that it doesn't come to that, but also prepping, like literally and figuratively, for that eventuality. So, yo, what's up, Scuba Steve? Let's fucking go. What's up, Dude Face? What's up, Soleil? What are your thoughts on Samurai Wallet case? Seems like secure private transaction are equally important to the greater Bitcoin community. Yeah, guy needs to get a pardon. I haven't looked into it too deeply, but that's just crazy. Great interview with one of the founders on TFTC 2 days ago. Seems like all the focus is on nodes and transaction security should be equally important. Like maybe it's a focus pull. Yeah, you got to be aware of those things. 5th generation warfare, like literally everything is a psyop at this point. Everything is meant to distract you, pull your attention from something to something else. And, it makes me wonder what shit like Venezuela is really distracting us from. It can't be good. Can't be good for any of us. So, yeah, I do see the posts about the Samurai case every once in a while, but I really haven't dug into it too much. But clearly, we need anonymity on layer 2 because what is it, Monero? Monero kind of proves that you can't get it on layer 1. So Bitcoin is doing the right thing by just focusing on decentralization and security on layer 1. We'll scale on layer 2. We'll do anonymity on layer 2. Things like that. But yeah, I got my fingers crossed for the guys, but I just don't know enough about the case. All right. Let's see what we got going on today. Can't be too much, I don't think. So my aggressive 190 strikes that were like 40 deltas or something last Friday, they went in the money briefly. So it looked like I was going to get absolutely wrecked again 2 weeks in a row. And now, of course, strategy's taking a dump again. So it would be easy to just armchair quarterback this and say that, yeah, I knew this would happen or whatever. But clearly 2 weeks ago when I sold what did I sell? I think we were trading at like below 160 and I sold the 165s and we pumped to like 185 or something. So that cost me a pretty penny, but I try not to let those things cause me to make mistakes in the future because there was nothing wrong with that position. Sometimes you just don't win. Like, especially some of these 40%, like 40 delta covered calls. Those, just by the numbers, that's basically a coin flip. I should be losing those bets every other week. So that shouldn't be anything surprising. Like, oh no, my strikes are breached. Like, of course they are. It's just the nature of math. So there's only $40 left in these bad boys. Prorated out to like a 5-day trading week, that would be $200, which is like 1% for a week. So I'm thinking I'll just leave these on, but let me see what would happen if I roll the strikes down. So if I went to the expected move and rolled closer to the share price, I could get an extra $100 a pop or at 185, I could basically double the premium, but I would be putting myself at risk for a rally. So maybe I'll come back to it if I need to, but I'm not really terribly motivated. I kind of feel like I got away with one, and just rolling down for one day is not really getting me too much. So leave this one for tomorrow. And I really am hopeful that BIP 110, this was it Claire Ostrom or something, I can't remember exactly what her name is, that submitted the cat. Initially she was getting, maybe censorship is not the right word because that's kind of like a government thing, but she was getting censored by the mailing list. And then because she didn't put it through the mailing list, they wouldn't let her put it on the GitHub, I think, if I have that correct. So they were like, okay, that's a catch-22. It's like, if you can't get in one because you can't get in the other, but you're not even letting me post in the other one, then you're basically just not allowing this to be talked about. So it's good to see that it's at least being considered and getting the fear of God put into the shitcoiners. All right, so this account, unfortunately, I had chipped the margin back down below 50, but now, of course, I had to withdraw like 10 grand to pay some bills. And so now I'm back using margin again. And somebody actually DM'd me, I remember it was a month or two ago, because Strategy was probably down to like 275 a share or something off of all-time highs of 500. And they were like, hey, I'm thinking about using margin, like what do I need to know for margin? And it reminded me of what my best friend as a kid, when he turned, I don't know, 12, 13, 14 years old, his mom told his dad, like, hey, he's getting up there, you got to have the talk with him, birds and the bees. And so he's like, all right, fine. And he goes and says to my friend, he says, if you ever think about doing it, don't. And that's my theory on whether you should use margin or not. Probably not. And even if you are going to use it, I would probably do something. The math experiment would be like, okay, what's the worst case scenario for this position? Okay, it's already dropped 75% of all-time highs, but maybe does it drop another 50%, right, to like 90? So if you're using so much margin that this dropping to 90 would cause you to have a margin call, and you don't have any way to, like, in case of emergency, break glass and cover that margin call, then it's too much. It's too much margin. So like when the price was 450 a share, I would have said that 178 is worst case scenario. But now that we're sitting at 178, I'm like, oh yeah, Bitcoin could go to 50 and Strategy could go to 90. Like, this shit could easily happen. So you should probably imagine what your worst case scenario is, and then imagine that it's way worse than that if you're going to use margin. So, without actually giving actual financial advice, just be careful. Don't wreck yourself. All right. I also have this cash secured put, which I put on because it looked like it was not counting nearly as much buying power against me. So I was able to take some extra positions without even having it. Wait, where is it? Okay, it's been a week. Yeah, so normally in a cash account, you'd have to put up 16 grand to collect this $800, which is really good. That's it's like 4.5%, 5%. Yeah, it's like 5% returns over 36 weeks. So divided by 7 weeks is like yeah, like a percent a week. Plus, you'd be getting a serious discount if you're forced to buy these shares at 160 instead of the current price, 178. But the other benefit is that instead of counting, and this is actually surprising. I thought this was going to be at least 8 grand of margin requirement. That's wild. Yeah, I'm getting an $800 credit, but it's only reducing my buying power by 900. So like, you still have to be careful. It's not like, oh, okay, well, I can just take 100 of these positions. Because if you do that and then the price of strategy did go to 125, now you'd be on the hook for what, 10,000 shares or something at 120 or 160 a share, which would be what, 1.6 million or something. So yeah, I mean, you still have to have the money. But just, to skim a little bit without actually being, having to pay the margin interest is kind of what I'm talking about here. I could probably be making the same returns if I took, yeah, if I sold like 500 shares and then just sold 5 cash secured puts. I'd probably end up with without having to like be charged the most. There's still margin risk, but I just wouldn't be paying the interest. So I mean, I don't know. I might have to optimize that. Let me just see what are weeklies. Yeah, see, this is more like a 10-to-1, where the other position was almost 1-to-1 ratio of credit to buying power. Almost like an infinite money glitch. But these are very aggressive, but still pretty buying power efficient. We do 170. Yeah, pretty efficient. Let's do 45 days. I'm gonna go down to the expected move. Yeah, this is insanely capital efficient. You also have to keep in mind that you're only going to collect this money. You're only going to collect about 25% of this a week, max, maybe as low as 15% of this a week. So 25% would be what, 150, 160 a week. Which, if I did have to put up the full 15 grand, that's about 1% a week, with the potential of getting a pretty nice discount here. I guess that makes sense a little bit, because if the price of MSTR goes up, the only amount that I can collect is the credit. But if I own shares and I'm selling the 230 strike, I'm going to get all the price appreciation from 178 to 230. So maybe that's the reason. So the cash secured puts seem to be a little bit more capital efficient, but if the price does go up, owning the shares seems to be the move. But I'm selling my covered calls damn near at the money anyway, so I'm not even going to get that much price appreciation on my shares the way that I'm kind of doing this. Yeah, so for now, I'm just kind of dipping a toe into this. I'm not like going all in, like, oh, okay, let me just sell all 1,000 of my shares and then let me sell freaking 10, 20 cash secured puts. That might be more capital efficient, but not necessarily the best move overall. But I was kind of surprised to see that ratio, because like iron, it was not that favorable. Let's do the 35. Yeah. So this is about a 9-to-1 ratio of credit to buying power reduction. But the one that I noticed it on initially was Cypher. Like this was really good. Let's just hit the 15. About a 2-to-1 ratio at the 15 strike. 17. Yeah, a little better than 2-to-1. And the expirations matter too, because this one, actually it's changed on me a little bit. Yeah, 4-to-1, 5-to-1. So interesting. Let me check Tesla real quick. What's Tesla putting me on the hook for? If I sell the 400, yeah, see, 10-to-1 ratio. I'd have to put up 10 grand to collect 900, which is still decent, but why such a huge discount on a strategy right now? Kind of can't help myself. All right, 58,790. Yeah, reduced my margin use. Even though I'm putting myself on the hook for another 15 grand if the price goes below 150. So kind of weird. I'm not going to YOLO it on it or anything, but here's the other CSP. Let's group it. All right, the Cypher. I added like 10 of these because it was pretty crazy how much premium I could get for the buying power usage. But it's only been on for 8 days, so I'll just let it cook. Let's see, dude face. In case you're curious, Slim of Ask Slim is maintaining 70,000 range mid-January. Recall he correctly called previous pullback. In case you aren't getting enough bearish signal. He's calling for 70K Bitcoin. Yeah, I mean, it's well within the realm of possibility. Let's go back about a year. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've got a little bit of support for 84. But after that, like, I mean, if we don't hold on to 84, it's definitely going to 70, right? We've got a bunch of 70 as former resistance. A lot of times, former resistance acts as future support. We've also got this support at 73. So yeah, if this is not the bottom, then it's definitely 70. What's up, Angry Buddha? Waiting for this month's funds to allocate, looking to sell more Strive. $1 for 15 to 20. Is that cash secured puts? So I've found a few tickers selling the cash secured puts, and for some reason, there's a few tickers, and this is a cash account, so it's not going to work here, but tickers like Cypher, and for some reason, Strategy today, like the buying power reduction is like extremely efficient compared to the collateral that they're putting up. Like selling the 160 strike on Strategy wasn't making me put up 16 grand in collateral. It was only like, I don't know, $800 or something. It's kind of weird. But I noticed that on Cypher a week ago, whereas some of these other positions like Iron And actually, strategy last week, it was more like somewhere between a 2 to 10 to 1 ratio. But none of that's going to matter in the IRA because it's a cash account. So there's no margin benefits. All right, I sold the 14. I'll just deal with this tomorrow. Still got a bunch of extrinsic value left. Tesla. Yeah, I only rolled it a couple days ago. Plenty of extrinsic left. So with Cypher, I've been selling the weeklies. There's almost nothing left, but if I prorate out this 1 day of 15 cents, like 15 cents doesn't seem like much. But, for 5 trading days, this would be 75, which is like, that would be 3% returns for the week. So this is actually still reasonable. Like 15 cents isn't a lot, but when the share price is 18, that's actually pretty decent. So I will collect my last 15 bucks for tomorrow. For iron, it's 15 bucks, but the share price is 3 times that of Cypher. So this isn't nearly as worth it. Still, if I multiply this times 5, that's 80 bucks for a week. That would be like almost 2% for the week. Kind of crazy. Well, let's see what happens if I roll the strikes down to try to squeeze a little bit more profit out of this bad boy. So if I roll to closer to the expected move, instead of collecting 20 bucks for 1 day, I can collect 45 bucks for 1 day, which I would have to, I'd have to buy this one back for 20 and get an extra 20. So yeah, I'll make that little tweak to the position. Now, if this rallies back to $50 a share, I just screwed myself out of 200 bucks per contract. But, oh God, what did I just do? Okay. Was that Cypher? No. It was Iron. I thought I already looked at Cypher. I did. SATA. So this is where I was just kind of storing some buying power. So what is this? 9 times 9, 81. So there's like 800 bucks here. I can buy another share and have $900 worth of dry powder stored here. But let me just take a look at strategy first in case I need to come back to it. So I sold the 198 calls. I didn't even think January 16th. I didn't even think they sold ticks of 1. I guess they did. 95, 196, 198. I thought they were in increments of 5, so that kind of surprised me a little bit. Kind of irrelevant. Yeah, plenty of extrinsic value left to collect here. Yeah, so in 9 days, I'll just kick the can down the road 9 days. That's when these will be 90 days to expiration. And then I'll decide how many Poorman's covered calls I want to roll out, how many tack the tail positions I want to take. And so I guess I'll just hold on to these 9 shares for another 9 days. And then I've got an extra 16 shares I can play around with here as well. That can give me some dry powder. And then what I kind of hate the IRA, but it's the most fun account to play in because I can just buy whatever I want, sell whatever I want, don't have to worry about the tax ramifications. So it's definitely the most fun account to trade in, but since I would have to take penalties to make withdrawals earlier, it's kind of like the account that I hate the most at the same time. All right, this is my allowance. This is my spending account. And this confuses me every time I look at it for a second, and then I remember why. I'm like, why do I have 24 shares of this shit? And the reason is kind of that same situation where I was selling the cash secured puts, but it really wasn't counting against my buying power in these margin accounts. So even though I sold these 2 cash secured puts, most exchanges in a cash account will count this $1,700 times 2 against me, and it would actually subtract that $3,400 from my buying power up here. But Tasty Trade was not doing that. Like if I owned 100 shares, it was counting some kind of margin, maybe 50% margin use against me. But the cash secured put, it wasn't counting that against me at all. So I was like, well, screw it. If you're going to give me an extra $2,400 of buying power and I don't have to pay margin interest on it, then I'll just buy a bunch of shares of SATA and get 1% a month on my money. And then if Steve and Ben can get this fucking thing pumped up to $100 a share, then I'll get a free almost 10% off of that. And, it's only up 12 cents since I bought it, but should get there eventually. I don't know how high they're gonna have to pump the interest rate on this thing, or if they're just gonna be fighting the headwinds of Bitcoin floundering for now. But that was kind of how I thought about it. So again, plenty of extrinsic value here. I'll just hold this for another week or two. 9 days to shit or get off the pot with these positions. So no need to roll this yet. Let's see, AB says, just sticking with the allocation schedule. I don't want to get distracted. Sounds like a good plan. All right, the challenge account. I've only got like 100 shares left. I think I had 400 or 500 shares, and every time the price would dip, I thought, oh, okay, this is a good time to buy low. And every single one of these poor man's covered calls was a buy low. That all it did was lose more money. So, every dip, if you're buying shares, you can just hodl forever. But in this scenario, I thought I was buying a dip, but it wasn't necessarily buying the bottom. And so even though I've had this open for 177 days, right? It's not like I was YOLOing calls for next week. So over the 177 days, this bad boy has lost 80% of its value. Now, I've been making covered call premium the entire time, but there's no way in hell that a covered call on a poor man's covered call can outweigh the destruction of the price going down. I mean, you would have to be selling extremely risky covered call strikes that would put you at risk for, infinite losses if the price went up. So if you knew the price was going to go down, then you could sell really aggressive covered calls. But if you knew the price was going to go down, why would you be owning leverage in the fucking first place? So be very careful with the poor man's covered calls. I think every option seller at some point slaps their forehead and is like, oh, well, if I can make 1% premiums per week selling these covered calls, I can make 2% a week, 3% a week, 4 or 5% a week selling these poor man's covered calls. It's way more capital efficient. Yeah, sure. But if the price of your underlying goes down 20%, then the price of your long call goes down 50%. So that's, it just goes back to that. The market can stay irrational for longer than you can remain solvent, right? So I'm like barely clinging on to 100 shares in this account. And we'll see. If strategy went below 150, God, I don't know if I would have the balls to like crack open my last few shares here and there to buy more dips. kind of in a holding pattern for now. So we'll see. Long story short, 99 days. Once they're down to 90 days expiration, I will decide, I'll probably just close all of these positions. What can I even get for these? Probably about 7,500. So maybe 10 grand between all of these positions. To open up more poor man's covered calls 6 to 12 months out, I'd probably be able to only get like one or two, maybe, which would reduce my leverage considerably, which is good if the price keeps going down. But, for me to go ahead and like try to roll these same strikes out, that's kind of like revenge betting. Just, yeah. And I just have no idea what Bitcoin's going to do. So I know what strategy's going to do. They're going to keep stacking sats. So nothing has changed there really. Tesla, same. So this has been open a week. I sold it for 11. It's only worth 3. So so this is actually just for tomorrow. Never mind. I was thinking this is 45 days expiration. Yeah, prorated out, this would be like worth $1,500. So I'm just gonna stand pat here. This is actually almost at the money. Yeah, I'll wait. Hopefully I don't miss the market. What was it last couple of weeks ago? I forgot that Black Friday they were going to close 2 hours early, so I ended up not being able to trade that day. All right, same with these mining stocks. I'm just a premium whore here. I don't really know which mining stocks are better than others. I've taken a liking to Iron and Cypher lately because the people that I know that are knowledgeable on mining stocks like them because their AI plays as well as mining. So I guess they can, I don't know, if they're also like, if the data center angle pays more, they can just stop mining and go do that. So that gives them a little bit of optionality, which is kind of nice. And I guess if if AI ends up being a bubble and those crash, then maybe they can just flip the switch and start mining again. That's just me making shit up. I don't really know if that's how it works or not, but they like them. And when smart people I know like things, sometimes that's good enough for me. All right, so I sold the 46. The stock's only worth 43. It's worth 18, so that's about 90 cents for a week, which is still like 2% if I prorated these out. So even though 18 cents doesn't sound like much, I'll just do nothing. And I'll just wait for tomorrow. Probably buy these back for a penny or something. But same situation here. So really I might. Oh, this is a cash secured put. If I close this, what would it do to my buying power? Yeah, so it's only going to change my buying power by $100. Let me take a look at this again. Yeah, this is like a 1 to 1.5 ratio. I'd get $100 credit and only $180 worth of buying power reduction. And I guess they're giving me a bigger credit at the 36 day. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is here. Yeah, 2 to 1. Let's try it. I'm going to go to the 15. Ooh, the liquidity here is kind of bad. $200 credit and only reduced my buying power by $50. Uh, I like the sound of that, but I don't know if this is really going to fill at that price. Yeah, not even close. Should fill, for God's sake. Nothing. The bids, the bids ain't budging. Yeah, it makes sense that that was a little too good to be true. Like the credit was like 4 times the buying power reduction. That was kind of weird. Yeah. So this actually increased my cash instead of decreasing it. So I don't want to go too crazy with it, but it is pretty efficient that I'm actually able to use margin without paying the margin interest. It'll suck. It'll suck if the price of Bitcoin goes down. But for now, we'll see. Doofus, do you think Tasty IV ranking being higher means they adjust the capital efficiency in favor of the underlying? I wonder how they choose. Yeah, you would think that a higher IV. Oh, so maybe the IV rank being low means they're not worried about price fluctuations as much. So less likely that your strikes will be breached. But MSTR was actually pretty good too. And it was 33, right? What was I doing? Looking at the 150 strike? No, that's like 8 to 1. So I'm looking at the 160 or something. Oh, you know what? So this account is smaller and it's a different type of margin account. I wonder if that matters. I get more, maybe I need to close this, not necessarily close the account, but just move the money from this account over to the other one where I have more favorable margin terms. Tasty Trade actually has 2 different kinds of margin accounts, and it has to be large enough to qualify. So I might just need to fill out their stupid ass form. But it's a pain in the ass. You would think I would be able to just do this automatically, right? And just go to transfers and be like, okay, this position, click, 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 transfer these, transfer this over from this account to this other account. But I have to do it on a paper form, and it's annoying. I spent over an hour on the chat feature with fucking Verizon today. Thought, oh, chat feature usually works quick, and it wasn't quick. The agents were nice, but that chat feature is no bueno. Where was I? I don't even remember if I looked at everything. Tesla, good. I think I said if I prorate this out, it's still worth holding. $50. We'll just watch that till tomorrow. Yeah, nothing. All right, we're done. All right, the 5K account, got this expiring tomorrow. Sold it for 50. It's worth 10. Yeah, so I can just collect that last $10 for tomorrow. I think my brother-in-law went to work already. I got to talk to him about this one tomorrow. This one and this one, we need to roll. We need to roll out to 45 days. If I roll it out to the same strike, we can get a little credit here. Or we could roll it up for an even bigger credit, depending on how greedy we want to get with it. Have to make a decision soon on strategy. So with an account size here, it's going to be very difficult for me to justify doing another poor man's covered call. And if I do, it'll probably have to be very risky and aggressive. Like with $6,000, I can't really afford a real one. So I'd have to probably go out to like 99 days, buy something out of the money, for like $2,000, and then sell the 220. Or the 225. That's putting up $2,000, collecting, let's just call it 600 at the 220. Best case scenario is I keep 150 a week, which would be like 7%. That's pretty ridiculous, actually. But this is decaying pretty rapidly. So this this $200 long call, what's the theta on that? Where is it? I thought it was this one. For 320, 123.26. $320.26. Oh. Oh, no wonder. I went to the wrong date. Yeah, no wonder it's so freaking cheap. 99 days. No, sorry, I meant 189. Yeah, the 200 strike now is like 3,300 bucks. That's like half the entire buying power for this account would be in one position. So this would be kind of a pain in the ass. And collecting 150 a week, best case scenario, and putting up 3,300, that's still like 5% a week. Minus however much this is going to decay. So theta, 11 bucks a day. Yeah, so that's 75 a week minus 11, minus like 50 a week. Yeah, this is really only 25 bucks a week. So not even 1%. Now, if we've hit the bottom and the $200 call appreciates some, then, you can get more. But if the price goes down, obviously you can get less. Or actually, this is a little bit dangerous. If the price went over 400, you could get infinite losses here. So that's probably not reasonable. So yeah, I may have to resort, my attack the tail in this account might end up having to resort to debit spreads. These are 320. So maybe about 20% of the money. Let's go 225s. Buy. So yeah, these will cost about $100. And if they win, they would return about what, 3 to 1. Yeah, I'd have to resort to something like that. We'll see. Yeah, nothing to do today, though. Nothing I got to rush into. All right, appreciate everybody for tuning in. Be good, Joe.